Okay, this is it. I can't put this off anymore. The channel, we've been around long enough that it's time for me to give my top 12 list. I was just watching Finn McKenty's, top 10 albums, and I'm like, you know what? I really need to get over myself and just get this done. If you know my blog, which is cleanandsoberstoner.com, usually I'm doing like lists of minimum of 20. I do 100 of the best albums each year. So this is really tough. I spent more time picking out my shirt than I did writing this because I wanted this to be, like honest. I'm asked the question and boom, I come up with it. I know I'm going to second guess everything. I really hope, you second guess everything, but I've been around since, the 1970s. And, you know, these are what I think are the top 12 heavy metal albums of all time done by decade. So it's not really the top, it's just by decade. I picked the two best albums for me for each decade. So I'm going to start off first. This list has to start with Black Sabbath. And this one, I actually chose Sabotage because I feel like Sabotage is neutral territory. But something very interesting was happening in 1975 when they came out with this album. It's like one of the very first progressive albums. Symptom of the Universe is one of their most complicated. They really riff for it. I could have gone with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I'm gonna second guess it, but Sabotage is probably the best produced. It's probably the best Ozzy's voice has ever sounded. And this is one time I'm not going to want to get into an argument with Martin Popoff. It's one of those few times that I agree with the popster, and I'm going to stick to it. So Sabotage representing all of the Black Sabbath albums. And yes, they are the birth of heavy metal as a band. And die on that hill. Number two is going to be really interesting to y'all. King Crimson, Red. King Crimson heavy metal. Yeah, they invented heavy progressive metal. There'd be no Tool. There'd probably be no King Bastard. A lot of what you listen to, it wouldn't sound the same if it wasn't for Robert Fripp, John Wetton, Bill Bruford. This album is heavy from the gate. It is a complex masterpiece, and there's a reason that nobody else sounds like King Crimson because nobody else can. Just ask Steve Vai, who he spent like months trying to learn how to play 1980s King Crimson. But this is peak, the end, 1975 King Crimson. It is a ripper right from the beginning. There isn't a weak moment on the song. It also contains my number one song of all time, Starless. It is, take my word for it, I understand I can't play it here because of the copyright and all that stuff, but King Crimson Red is one of the two greatest heavy metal albums to come out in the 70s. 1980s, my first choice isn't really all that tough. I don't see this being controversial. I think this is probably the number one heavy metal of all time for a lot of people out there. I can only be referring to Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. I honestly hated this album. I'm a Diano fan, right? So it took me a long time to get used to Bruce Dickinson and his delivery. It took me a long time to get used to I love the production value of the first Iron Maiden album and Killer. I think they're fantastic. But Iron Maiden Number of the Beast is probably the birth of modern heavy metal. The complicated arrangements, I still kind of consider progressive in a lot of ways because nobody else was doing this stuff. Bruce Dickinson's vocals are stellar. His lyrics are incredible. The storytelling, I mean, it could be the greatest heavy metal album of all time, but then there's so many Iron Maiden classics. But Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, one of the two greatest heavy metal albums of the 80s. The second album actually would be my choice for number one. My number 4 album overall, number 2 for the 1980s, Celtic Frost, Into the Pandemonium. And folks, you almost have to listen to this with the ears that we had in 1987. There really nothing like this existed on the planet. They're birthed out of Hellhammer, which today has a lot of credibility, but the other albums are great. Emperor's Return, Morbid Tales, to Megatherion are fantastic. Into the Pandemonium, it's a departure for Celtic Frost. It is so out there. You have that really weird rap electronic thing going on. You have Tanji Warrior doing like soft, non-harsh vocals. But look, it's got the in it. It's got the grunts. It has, I don't know, it's their best songs. It's, the recording's crap, but who cares? It is, and I don't think it's possible for us to list every band and every album that has been influenced directly or indirectly by Into the Pandemonium. It is, and it beats out albums like Metallica's Master of Puppets. I'm not a Metallica fan. I make no bones about it. You can call me a rockist, but Metallica, but Master of Puppets, it's a masterpiece. But Into the Pandemonium, oh my God, it is, yeah, that album's so hard to describe. It hits hard today. From the opening, the Wall of Voodoo cover on Mexican radio, a sense of humor. It's every twist and turn on Into the Pandemonium is unpredictable, unexpected, and unequaled. Now, number 5. I said Number of the Beast is probably number 1 album all time for me. Kyuss, Welcome to Sky Valley, my number 1 pick of the bands from the 90s. Welcome to Sky Valley. Look, I wouldn't be here doing this channel if it wasn't for Welcome to Sky Valley. I can name record labels that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. A seemingly infinite number of bands because of Welcome to Sky Valley. It is a perfect album in every way. It's meant to be listened to from beginning to end, and there isn't a boring, bad moment on it. It starts out with Gardenia, which incidentally blew out 2 high-end sets of speakers of mine. Within the first 30 seconds of Gardenia, you've got Scott Reeder on bass, one of the greatest bass performances, beginning to end, ever recorded. John Garcia is on fire. Josh Homme is at his down-tuned, swaggery, play it through a bass amp best. And, well, Brant Bork on drums. It's a masterpiece. It is the reason most people in Stoner Doom are here. It's the Elvis Presley of Stoner Doom albums. It is fantastic. My second choice from the 90s was a little bit more difficult. I mean, we're talking some serious stuff that came out in the 90s. And I was listening to Helmet back then. I was listening to Prong. I was listening to Sleep. But, I had the list written up and wait a minute. This is the band that gets no respect. In my estimation, they invented the genre of stoner doom metal. That's Acid King, Bussy Woods. There's nothing like it. Lori S. Look, she's not a shredder. She's not Yngwie Malmsteen. She's not going to blow you away with Kirk Hammett type arpeggio. But she plugs the guitar into a distortion, a fuzz pedal, into an amplifier, and she becomes the Muddy Waters of heavy metal. She can do so much with how the chords she chooses, how she plays them, the basic, everything about this album is mega, like, off the walls, heavy. Acid King, Bussy Woods, it doesn't get nearly enough credit. It is right there with Welcome to Sky Valley, Dope Smoker, Bussy Woods, And don't throw them by Electric Wizard. That would be, if there's a, 4 pillars of Stoner Doom, is it. Acid King doesn't get mentioned nearly enough. So, number 6 on the list, Acid King, Bussy Woods. Number 7, I'm playing it safe again. This is another album that I know that people are going to go, huh, that is one of the top 12 heavy metal albums of all time. And that's Opeth, Blackwater Park. I love progressive metal unless it tries too hard to be progressive metal and then it gets boring. But Opeth combined with Steven Wilson, of course, on the production, you've got black metal type blast beats going on there. You have Michael's world class, best ever growling vocals, the bass playing, the percussion. It is another album, perfect beginning to end. There isn't a weak moment on this album. And then Blackwater Park, there are so many parts of that one song that they have to be considered in the top 10 moments of heavy metal all time. Opeth, I could only pick one. It's got to be Blackwater Park. I was thinking pretty heavily about Still Life, which I actually like a little bit better than Blackwater Park, but you can't. Genius is something that it's really hard to ignore, and I think that Opeth was at their peak on Blackwater Park. Number 8, this is another one of the pillars. They come a little bit later into the whole gig. But the number 8th album on the list, my second choice for the 2000s, is Yob, The Great Cessation. One, it's my favorite Yob album of all time. It redefined heavy in ways that, frankly, I don't think heavy's been handled quite the way the Yob does. I mean, there's heavy, there's Slayer heavy, which is really loud and aggressive and fast. Then there's Yob heavy. It feels like it weighs 2 or 3 tons. It's impossible to carry that burden. Great Cessation, by the way, probably my number 3 song all time is the song Great Cessation. It's progressive without being noodly. It's oppressively heavy, but there's a lot of spiritual meaning behind it. It is Mike Scheidt at the peak of his prowess, although his peak, has sustained this whole time. But there's, again, not a weak moment on The Great Cessation. One of my favorite albums all time, one of my favorite bands all time. So for the 2000s, number 2 was Great Cessation. Number 9 on this list, released in 2015, is not going to be a surprise. I could pick almost any one of their albums and put it on here, but that's Elder Lore. Dead Root Stirring is a heavy masterpiece. There's no doubt about it. Dead Root Stirring is amazing. But man, when Nick and the boys, they released Lore, it overnight, I think the entire heavy underground, the stoner doom scene changed. And it was okay to have grandiose ideas and to have really long songs that start out really intriguing. There's multiple movements within each one of the songs. And then the ending, the climaxes of, Spirit of Aphelion comes to mind as fucking A. It is one of the greatest progressive type heavy metal / stoner doom. It created its own category. Lore is when stoner doom really grew up, and I think a lot of bands that came afterwards, bands like Ritual King, who I'll be mentioning later, is just Lore gave so much hope and optimism, and it gave the whole heavy underground something else to kind of look at and go, huh, wow, almost anything is possible. And Elder did it with Lore. Number 10 is in there because it's one of my personal favorites, but Spaceslug and Lemanis from 2016, it again, it redefined heavy psych. It redefined the whole idea of space rock, at least for me. Um, they, the writing and the way that they go into a 3/4, almost a waltz like, they all three of them are singing with their heavy Polish accents, and it's kind of the kind of music that you could sit in a beer hall with a pint and just. But the story is compelling. I think everything about this album, again, start to finish, is perfect. It redefined heavy psych and space rock in a very meaningful way. Uh, you could argue that there are other albums that might be better, but Lemanis is just, it's a punch to the heart. Like Lemanis and Spaceslug, iconic. They, yeah, I can go on, and I would argue that they really truly are in the top 10 heavy band of all time. Now we get to the roaring 20s, as we like to say, and like the rest of this list, 10 minutes from now I can go, oh man, I really should have. So it's early in the game, but I'm picking what I think are the two best recorded, best executed albums that I've probably ever heard. Both of these albums, to me, challenge the whole notion that the best music was made in the 70s. First one, I've got to go with Sergeant Thunderhoof, and This Sceptered Veil is perfect. Mark Sayer is the most underrated guitarist, I think, in the entire genre. Dan Flitcroft is the best male vocalist. He's on par. Trigger alert! He's on par with Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. He's on par. He's right there. He is on par with Bob Halford from Judas Priest. Uh, Most of you watching this have no idea who Sergeant Thunderhoof is. They're out of Bath, England. They're entirely DIY. They have their own very high level studio in Bath, England. Dan owns it and he runs it. They are one of the most criminally underrated bands of the past 30, 40, 50 years. Sergeant Thunderhoof, they'll be playing here in the United States. I'll be seeing them at Planet Desert Rock Weekend in Las Vegas, put on by a friend of this channel, John Gist. Anyway, my first selection for the roaring 20s of today is Sergeant Thunderhoof, This Sceptered Veil. And number 12, I did not put it at number 1 last year, and I've been second guessing that ever since. But Ritual King's Infinite Mirror is one of the greatest recorded, greatest songwriting. Like, it's one of the best albums I've ever heard in my life, regardless of era, regardless of genre. Ritual King's Infinite Mirror just hits all those buttons that other people on YouTube and other media outlets and other like aging boomer rock stars are saying, rock is dead. There's no Ritual King. It's it is everything that my facial expression and body language is telling you. It's just one of the greatest albums I've ever heard, and it's only growing in esteem as each month goes by, as I listen to it. And I put this on at least once a month. Fantastic, progressive, heavy blues band out of England. I think that they really are something else. So that's it. Believe it or not, those are what for me are the 12 greatest heavy metal albums of all time by picking 2 per decade. This list is not ranked because music, it is a competition for your dollars, but art itself isn't a competition. I will be putting on a Tidal playlist. The link will be down below. Let me tell you, the reason I use Tidal is because let's say that you click on that link, but you use Spotify, it automatically takes you to Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music. It's Tidal does not make you choose. That's why on Clean the Sober Stoner and Monster Riff, we have switched to title links so that we're giving you a choice. We're not telling you what you have to do. I'm also not telling you that you have to think these are the greatest albums, but for you, what are the 2 best heavy metal albums by decade? Love to see it in the comments below. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. It really means a lot. And I'll be seeing you soon with more content, more brand new bands for you to discover, more old school bands for you to revisit as we continue to build the momentum, which is becoming a pretty good Stoner Doom channel. So much respect. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.